No, don't.
It's been good for me.
Oh, very good.
Makes me a little bit interesting, so.
Are you rolling?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Let's kill
Yeah, and kill the air conditioner or whatever.
Oh, just for a second.
You'll have to forgive me for being a director, too.
All right.
No, no.
Oh, wait, I think I'm gonna. Okay, we're rolling.
Jeannot, of course, we remember you very well as the director of Jaws 2, which was such an action-packed adventure, but a little bit of a fantasy, too. And now, Somewhere in Time, of course, is a romantic fantasy. I wonder, of the two pictures, which was the more difficult?
Well, they were totally different in terms of difficulty. Jaws 2 was probably logistically the most difficult film ever made. I mean, at one point someone said that we had more boats than the Czechoslovakian Navy. I had about 70 boats altogether. So most of the difficulty there was really the weather, logistics, and also the fact that you're dealing with this mechanical monster of 40 tons. I think Somewhere in Time was a much more difficult film artistically. I mean, it was not a film where the logistics were really that complicated, but you know, the careful blend of content and style, the visual and aesthetic elements of the picture, and also that the overall artistic point of view of the film were very difficult.
I think some people, seeing Christopher Reeve as the star of this, the romantic star, will say, Superman in this kind of movie? Did you have any hesitancy at all about having Christopher Reeve in this movie? No,
not at all. But you know what really happened is we really did not think about cast at all until the script was finished. Steve Deutsch, the producer, and Matheson, the writer, and I, we started developing the screenplay together. And from the beginning, when we went to Universal, we said, look, we want a go-ahead on this, on the project. We don't want to get into one of those situations where if you get Joe Schmo or if you get Paul Newman, then we'll make the picture. If you are interested, you must tell us, we want to make this project. Then we'll worry about cast. So while we were working on the screenplay, there would be times where one of us, would say, how about this? And then everybody say, hey, let's not talk about cast now. And then what happened is, individually, we saw Superman. And I remembered I was floored by his work in Superman, because I really went in expecting that the least believable character in the whole picture would be Superman, and it turned out to be the reverse. I thought he did extraordinary work for a very difficult part, and I believed him totally. I mean, he was very, very real, and physically, he was absolutely perfect for us. So what happened is then we all called one another and said, did you see Superman? Yes. And then we said, well, that's our man. And then we never looked for anyone else.
Do you feel that had a French filmmaker, of course I know you're French born, but I'm talking about a French filmmaker, a Lelouch or someone, had they made this picture, would it have a much different look from the way you have made it?
I really don't think so. Even though my entire professional career has been American, the fact is that my cultural film formation is European and French. I mean, I fell in love with films when I was in France, and I used to go to the Cinémathèque 7 times a week, and my whole obsession with films was very French. And when you look at Somewhere in Time, particularly the treatment of the past, it has a definite French impressionistic look. I mean, they used to call my office the Little Louvre because I had paintings of Monet and Manet and Degas all over the walls. And we used to have a lot of conceptual meetings with art direction, set dressing, and the cameraman to really talk about the look of the picture, because I wanted a different look between the past and the present. So in terms of style, I really don't think it would have been that different.
This film doesn't have an awful lot of action to it. And American filmgoers seem more and more to respond to action pictures. Does it concern you a little bit that that may be a minus as far as this picture is concerned?
No, not really. You know, I really made this film because it is the kind of film I've wanted to make for years, and I miss the kind of films that Hollywood was making in the 40s, which means films where basically character and story and aesthetics are the most important elements. This trend about car chases and special effects and action is very recent, but it does not concern me. I do not think it's true. I think the American audience has been given a plethora of films like that, and unfortunately very few films which are just based on a wonderful story. But the fact that Kramer versus Kramer was such a success, I think, is a sign that there is an enormous audience out there who is starving for films where people are more important than lenses. And there has not been really a good love story in a very, very long time. And for years I wanted to make a classical romantic love story. And when I met Steve Deutsch and he told me about this book, and I fell in love with the book, and when we started, we said from the beginning, we are going to make a classical romantic love story, and hopefully not only start our peers making the same kind of films again, but bring back to the theaters an enormous audience that really doesn't go anymore because they don't get the kind of films they want. And by the way, from the beginning, I said that I really felt that young people were going to fall madly in love with this film, because even though it might be not totally new to some of us, because we can remember The Ghost and Mrs. Muir and Casablanca and those kind of films, for them it's going to be something totally fresh and original because they've never seen anything like this. And if the previews are any indication, it was very unusual. You know, when we went, we previewed the film in Toronto, and it is a very soft film, you know, in the jargon of the industry. At one point I was sitting next to the chairman of the board of MCA. It was so quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody went to buy popcorn during the whole film. And then when we walked out, there was this group of young men, young boys and girls, they were about 16, 17. And two of them came up to me and asked me, were you the director? And I said yes, and they kissed me. And one of them said, this is the most beautiful film I've ever seen. This is what I've been waiting for years. How come nobody makes pictures like this anymore? So I really think that they are starved for this kind of material, but unfortunately, you know, it hasn't been done in a very long time.
Well, let's wait and see what happens, Jeannot. I hope that it is a big hit for you, and I personally loved the film. I think it's just a really beautifully well done film. So thank you so much for talking with us here at the Grand Hotel at Mackinac Island.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
Tell me when. I'll do reactions first. Okay, questions? Jeannot, of course we know you as the director of Jaws 2, a tremendous action picture, a little bit of fantasy there. But this picture, Somewhere in Time, is a romantic fantasy. Of the two, which was the more difficult? I think it will come as a surprise to many people when they see Christopher Reeve, Superman, starring in this romantic fantasy. Did you have any hesitancy at all about using him? You are French-born, but I think we would consider you an American film director. I wonder, had this film been made by a French director, a Lelouch or someone like that, would it have had an entirely different feel and look? Now the trend in movies seems to be action and chases and all kinds of special effects, and this movie is a quiet little movie with not a great deal of action. Do you fear for the success of your film? Okay, that should do it.